Okay, we're online. I'm Deeb, your host. Welcome to Bland Gaming, the most boring and technically inept internet channel on the internet. For the first time ever, I'm actually filming at an alternate location. I'm not in my secret lair. One of my players, Jade, who is married to another one of my players, has dragged me in the middle of this blizzard out to her lair, and she's lured me with this tea. Look at this. It looks like I'm on the Titanic right here. She does the tea quite. What kind of tea is this, Jade?
This is Hot Cinnamon Spice by Harney and Sons.
Oh, it's excellent.
Yes.
It is excellent. And I have been home with a cold all week, so that really hits the spot and everything. So,
Yeah.
so Jade, welcome to the channel here. The first thing that I want to start with is we're in your home. I walked to your home. I'm ashamed to say I have a confession to make. You live like 5 houses down from me in this cul-de-sac right down my. I almost brought my gigantic 4-wheel drive truck down here.
Well, when you have you have to do that, right?
Yeah, my wife made fun of me. The only reason, okay, in my defense, it's because I brought like 12 million books. Because something that I was talking about this morning was I realized how many of my games you've actually played in. I didn't realize that, like, we were discussing our code names. Everyone's got code names. So Jade is not your real name,
No.
but Fish Sticks is the only other guy that has played in more of my games than you. So I've been a GM for you.
That's awesome.
All right, so let's talk about your background really quick.
Okay.
So you're an interesting cat because you went to college with my wife.
Yep.
And you guys were in the dorm together, and I'd say you guys were friends.
Yep.
Yeah. And then post right about when Facebook came out, it's like you reconnected with my wife and then also with me and everything, because I was my wife's super cool boyfriend back in college.
I got stories.
Yes. Yeah. And then you had no idea that you were a nerd. You were kind of talk to me about that. So you were into gaming. No, you weren't into gaming at all.
No,
but you were
never
into
even knew.
nerdy stuff.
Well, I mean, maybe I don't know how nerdy of stuff I was into, but yeah, the field of board games was completely. I mean, the last board game I probably played was when I was a kid, and it was like Sorry.
Right.
So I had no idea that the types of board games that we play now even existed. Mm-hmm. So that was totally new.
But you were into nerd culture too, though.
Probably.
You watch nerdy shows.
I was gonna say, do you consider Buffy the Vampire Slayer?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, totally big on that.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and then you liked like Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, that kind of stuff and everything. So you were into that kind of stuff and whatnot.
I love the world of fantasy, and I love the world of like the ballad, basically, right? Telling stories in a sci-fi or fantasy or mixed setting. So anything like that, I'm pretty much gonna be like drawn to.
Yeah, and we'll get to it later, but I remember like the depth of your coolness. I became aware of it when I had said, "Hey, have you ever heard of Conan the Barbarian?"
Oh, right.
And you were like,
yeah.
Oh, yeah. Because I was recruiting for my campaign at that time.
Yeah.
And you could actually quote the movie and I was very impressed.
Yeah.
I was very impressed. I was like,
yeah,
okay,
because the other side of all of the like fantasy pretty like stuff is that I like a good fight.
Yes, you are. Yeah, and it's very interesting, and I'll kind of like go on this that like you are one of like the absolute sweetest and nicest and kind of just really kind of like Snow White type people I've ever met in real life. And then your characters are these ass kicking like you favor fighters. You favor stronger characters, very strong people and everything. And I think we know, I don't know if we want to get into that, but we know that it's your journey, I think, in your own self-awareness where your journey of empowerment, I think, really kind of comes to that. And I think that's where that comes from.
I'd agree.
But okay, so can we talk about, not specifically, but like, can we randomly talk about like your work, what kind of work you do? Okay, so you're about you're a little bit behind me. You're my wife's age, so you're
Yep.
we're about the same age. So
Right.
we're getting up there.
Getting up there.
And can we say you're a teacher?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So you're a teacher. Do you feel comfortable saying what you teach?
Yeah. So I'm
Okay.
a middle school teacher, teach orchestra.
Okay.
Yeah,
So you're a musician.
I'm a musician. Yeah.
There was a brief time where you actually, let's backtrack. Okay. So we reunite on Facebook and whatnot. I said I'm not going to say and everything and whatnot. Those are my two verbal bad habits and everything. And everybody on the channel, all these trolls come on my channel and they love to make fun of the fact that I overuse those. Okay, so I invited you to every Halloween. I have this gigantic Halloween board game night party, right?
Yep.
And I said, yeah, maybe you would be into that because you're into nerdy stuff and everything. So I invited you to Halloween board game night, and then you came and you played like a zombie game.
Yes.
And ironically, you played with your husband to be in that game. I have pictures of you guys
gosh. Yeah, okay.
playing that together.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I told him the same thing. You're welcome. Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah. Everything all the joy in your life is because of me. So yes. So so you guys actually played together in that first time. And my wife I've gone over this in my other channel, in my other videos, and she is not a nerd. She's not a gaming person, but she is completely supportive of it. She thinks it's adorable. She likes my friends from my nerd side more than my friends from my work.
Gotcha.
So she definitely likes my nerdy friends better, which I thought was really interesting. But
Nerds
anyway,
are interesting and cool. So
yes, they are. So you went ahead and then you started out with board games, and then I think we elevated you to role-playing games, and that's really what in my channel I talk about everything, but my viewers, they seem to really like the views go up on the role-playing. So we'll talk about the role-playing games today.
Those are my favorite.
So yes, so the first game that you ever played was
Yes.
I told you I was going to kind of step above you here while you kind of flip it. It was Call of Cthulhu. So tell me about what you remember. I mean, we went over this kind of, and you said, yeah, I don't remember all.
I know I don't remember everything, but this is where I'm a very visual person. So when I see stuff, now what I do remember is this was very dark and very I remember I like the storytelling element. What I like about role playing is I like to do everything. We had candles, it was dark. I like that kind of stuff. I like to have
Scary
the music. Yep, exactly. I like to have that.
I'm a huge
set a
music
scene.
person.
Yep.
Yes.
And I really like that. So what I remember about this one was just the scariness that can happen. So when I role play, it's a couple of things. Number one, I always tell the other players at the table, I am role playing, so if I stab you in the back, don't take it personally. It's what my character would do. And the other thing about that is you can my personal imagination can go as deep as I let it. So this one was one of those where it starts out okay. I'm not too scared at all. I've got my character. We have everybody else. We arrive at this scary asylum like place.
Yeah, on the island.
Right?
It's a great classic scenario.
Yeah, right. It's just classic, and then the classic weird things start happening. And I'm still okay as these weird things happen as we're exploring all these places, but then you'll come upon a scene, and then that scene is pretty horrific. Oh yeah, I remember this.
Yes. Yeah, the Elder Sign is a huge part of Cthulhu lore. Yes. So
then things start getting creepy and scary. So this was definitely one that I had kind of wanted to go back to.
It's funny, your husband said the same thing.
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
He was like really wanting to try it out.
Definitely a one that I might have to be tiny bit careful about as far as getting too deep into the horror.
Well, it's very much so. What's interesting, we just were talking about how you like these really powerful, combat type of strong characters and stuff.
Right.
The thing that is unique about Call of Cthulhu is that your people are really regular humans,
right.
And not even that. They're not even extraordinary. They're kind of they're college students, they're professors,
Right.
they're academics to have a tendency to do better in
Right,
this setting.
right.
So I think your character was a college student.
I think so.
She was a university student.
Like a researcher or something.
I think she was a librarian.
Like that. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Which is, that would probably be pretty, close to me. I was a librarian at some point in my career, so it's more close to my personal self. And I guess that's the thing about Call of Cthulhu is that it's regular people. There are no superpowers, and you are going to die or go crazy.
Yes. Yeah.
and so
doomed.
it's just a matter of you're doomed.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the one thing is over the whole thing as you go through this, you're doomed.
Yes. Yeah.
And that can be kind of a bummer sometimes.
Which makes it though, so you're playing for the story and for the experience.
Exactly.
And you're not playing to power up your character or things like that. Yeah.
Right.
And this was your first experience with role playing, and you actually did there was the first scene in the library where, do you remember the guy was reading the book and you guys were at Miskatonic University, and then he stood up and you said, "Oh, he's going to jump out the window."
Yeah.
And then we played that out. That was very fun.
Right.
I think the thing that really, I think what happened with this, what drew the steam out of this, and we've kind of talked about this, I know your husband and I mentioned it, was, and I have talked about it in my channel, is the one thing that will kill a good horror game is humor. And don't get me wrong, humor has a good place, an occasional humor, but when it's nonstop slapstick one-liners, and I think we had a group, we had some players that were just nonstop, just one-liners, and we couldn't settle into the creepy mood, and so that was a mood killer, and I think that it made it very difficult to continue. So we actually got distracted, and I scrapped this campaign, and we went to our next one.
Yeah.
But I think that much like what you were saying with you and your husband, I think that we could definitely, I would easily be persuaded. Call of Cthulhu, horror is my thing, because I love scary movies and I also love storytelling, and this contains the elements of both. And this was, for me, when I was younger, this was like the first role-playing game that I'd played with, like, it wasn't about getting powerful weapons and getting experience and playing it a lot like a lot of video games play today. This was about the story, and it was about really, I got into really narrative role-playing games. So we really took an odd turn from there. So then we went to Battlestar Galactica. So tell me about your experience with Battlestar Galactica. Now, before you get into that, I will say, so it's very interesting because some of the other players that we had in this were either really experienced role players or we had some veterans, and we ran it like almost like a military type simulator.
Right.
And what we did was we went ahead and did not have it, the Galactica. What we did was we had an old aging Battlestar that we called the Atlas, and we played through the story arc of the TV show, but instead of having the characters from the TV show, we made up our own characters. We had our own crew, and there were people like Gaius Baltar. We had him in there, but the one player was the commander. We had one player that was the executive officer. We had another player that was the squadron leader. And then we had another player that was like kind of a mechanic and Viper pilot. And then you talk about your character.
So, so my character was also a pilot, correct? I can't.
She was a Raptor pilot.
That's right, Raptor. I could visualize the Raptor itself. And I believe, was she just kind of fresh, but a really good pilot?
She was like the best pilot
right.
in the game. And I remember one of the other pilots said, "How come she's a better pilot than me?" And I said, that's kind of like the oxymoron of her character. And that you remember that like her squadron leader had written her up because he said that, look, you should be flying Vipers, and your lack of ambition. He gave you. I remember we role played the little kind of the little confrontation with him, and then the CAG kind of had to put him, the carrier air group commander had to put him in his place, and said, look, if she wants to fly Raptors, let her fly Raptors. And then you had another your flight officer was the young kid named Pod.
That's Pod. I love Pod.
Yeah, we called him Pod.
Right.
And he was kind of very fresh behind the ears.
Right.
And,
Right.
And her, I don't know if you remember, her call sign was like Vanilla.
Yeah.
Because she was so boring.
Right, exactly.
Everyone had all said that she was boring,
Yeah.
she was a loner. And once you had decided that part of her character, I said, oh, I'm going to make her fall in love with her flight officer.
Right.
And so I made this really impressionable young, like 21-year-old kid. And he followed her around and he really looked up to her. And do you remember, like, there was a part where it was in the very first scene, I think. There was like before the Cylon attack had happened, and there was like an explosion, and then there were two people that were careened, like two workers, because the ship was in dry dock, and you were shuttling the new XO,
right?
And you guys had to divert and try and rescue this person.
Yeah.
And I remember in that part, the person that you guys rescued, and you had to like pull up alongside of them and had them grab onto like the side of the Raptor. It was a female enlisted person, and Pod was an officer, and they started to develop a romance.
Right.
And remember, she like found out about it, and then there's fraternization rules, but she was totally a softie. She let him get away with it. And said, hey, I think you had a conversation with him, like, if you guys get caught, I'm not gonna.
Right, exactly.
I'm gonna deny that I even knew about this, you know. So tell me, what did you like about Battlestar Galactica?
So this was
because you really
fun.
shined in this one. You did really great. Yeah.
Well, I think that in many ways this was really close to who I am, vanilla, right? I mean, it's like, here's a set of rules, follow them, do your job. And probably at this time in my life too, the whole, I'm really good at what I do, but I'm not going to go beyond my comfort zone was kind of like this character too. Being a loner, being like, you know what, I'm just not, I like the dynamic of the ship, and that was okay though too. Being one of the only people, I mean, well, maybe not one of the only, but a lot of people with some military background in our group. I got kind of like, I felt like I never could really speak as cool as, like, you know, the commander, because they like, you know, have a military language.
Yeah, the guy that played the commander is Mal.
Right.
Malmus.
Exactly.
And then the guy that played the XO was an Army veteran himself.
Right.
And so the two of those guys were talking to each other, and he was just going, "Okay, what do you want, sir?" And it was so sometimes
perfect.
the game went off on its own with the two of those guys, you know.
But it was awesome. Like, so on the TV moments, you know, where you could just sit back, it was so like realistic.
Let's talk about what the TV moment is, because I've said that at points like you have to watch TV in my games. So tell me about that.
So I enjoy. So what I like about role playing, I am not very experienced in, like, we'll talk about when we get to some of the other games, the whole mechanics of like rolling for this or that outcome.
Yeah, I hate that too.
Yes. So I like the story. So I'm going to be your player that sits at the table and just goes along with the story, acts when I need to do my part. And then I like sleep and dream. Like, what would this person do? What if this happens? What am I going to do? Okay, well, next, you know, in between sessions, you know, and then when that session comes, I always have something really cool to say that I thought of, and it doesn't come out. But it's like one of those things that I really enjoy. And I also enjoy just sitting back, and it could be an entire night. Maybe I come up to, you know, like on deck, do one thing, and then I'm off, and then it's everyone else's show. So that for me is the TV show. Like, maybe it's the commander show, you know, and this entire session is going to be him. Now,
well, it wouldn't be the entire time, but
it
would be like, within 10 minutes, there would be a scene. It would be like you're watching a scene, and it's his scene.
Right.
And everyone is watching it, and he's interacting, and then we would go to the next person.
Exactly. And I'm cool with that. Like, I know, like, you know, as I go out deeper into this, you know, I you know, you watch like on other YouTube when people are talking about their role playing and stuff like that, they, you know, feel left out, or they don't feel like their character. I don't feel that way. I'd say I'm probably easygoing in that way. Like, I'm just like, no, I like everybody's moment to shine. And I also take it as an opportunity. In many of these stories, we have backstories. And so the curiosity in me, the detective in me, likes watching that TV because maybe they're going to say or do something that gives me insight as into what their backstory is, if it's a mysterious backstory.
That's a really good point, yeah, because a lot of the players in the groups develop things that the characters, stories that the characters know about them, and then they have personal stories that only the GM knows about. Right,
exactly.
And so as you get to know each other in game, then you start to unravel these little story arcs and stuff like that, which are very fun.
And this one definitely had one of those. And
it did. There was so everyone had, the way that I ran it, I think I ran like one big story that was going on, and then everyone had their own little minor stories that were going on in the background, kind of like the show. And so
exactly.
So I think that in order to play this one in particular, and in my games in general, you have to do that, be able to watch TV, where you have to say, well, I'm not in this scene, but it's okay. But on the same note, everyone has to get their time. Everyone has to get their time.
And that's one of the fun moments too, is it's easier, I think, to watch TV when you know everyone's gonna get their moment to shine. And there were moments like that in this where, what was it? Like I was out and it was like this impossible mission, but I'm such a good pilot. It happened.
Well, the silent attack.
That's right.
You remember there was all the, and let's talk about metagaming. I don't know if you understand what that means, but that's like, metagaming is where you can't act like you personally. You have to act like what your character would act.
Right.
And everyone has watched the show. Everyone knew that the Cylon attack was coming.
Right.
And for the most part, a lot of the players in the game were, particularly Mal, he did a great job of doing what he would do, not doing what, with the gift of hindsight, that he knew that the Cylon attack was coming. And I really liked that he was able to do that. But we did have a couple moments where some of the players were like, well, I'm going to do this. And I had to challenge them on it. And I was like, justify to me, why would you do that? Because you watch the show and you know that the Cylons are coming. So I thought that was really cool. And anyway, she wound up, I believe, when the Cylon attack happened, the Atlas was in dry dock, and I think Mal had refused to upload all of the Gaius Baltar navigation programs and stuff. He had refused, and he had justified it pretty good because he said, hey, this is not tested, it's brand new. And he was also kind of a very, the Battlestar itself was an old
It was like old school, old ship, old
yes. Well, and we had kind of the saying that it was kind of like it was the Battlestar where you went for your career to die. So everyone was kind of a black sheep on the, thank you very much.
Give me some more tea here.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And so it was kind of like this ship of fools kind of thing, which was another thing that played into the story so well, that it was like it was an older Battlestar, a lot like the Galactica was on the show. It wasn't the newer ones like the Pegasus and.
Well, and that's another thing about, I think, this one. Well, in most of all the games, I only know enough. So like I hadn't seen this entire series, and I know there's an old one and a new one. I had seen a couple of episodes of the old when I was a kid, and then a couple of, probably like a season of the new one, and then
Okay, go ahead and continue. Okay. I will do this 2 or 3 times through the video where, as I'm adjusting my hands, I always wind up hitting the power button and stopping the video. So go ahead.
No worries. So, so I kind of have a general idea of the characters, the time, the place, the setting, what is gonna maybe happen, but I don't know anything else. So it makes it very easy for me to just be my character. Mm-hmm. Because often if I don't know anything, I'm oblivious, which is great, because I think my character had to be oblivious in some things.
Well, it was pretty fun. And I will tell you too, I had like plans. I had warned you guys that I said, Well, some of you may turn out to be Cylons.
Right, exactly.
And, I had plans, with the gift of hindsight, I can tell you that I had plans to have your character, give her a potential moment to be self-sacrificing. Well, first let's talk about, so during the Cylon attack, she is being ordered by the station commander, who is Mal's superior, to accompany the squadrons which are running like the cap. So the very first squadron goes out there. They get, they get their power shut down and they get destroyed. And all that is left between her and, I think there were 3 raiders that had nukes that were inbound. She had to run and try and fight them by herself. And I remember she was like running her ship in front of them. And unfortunately, Mal had ordered her to. We had all these different configurations for Raptors and for Vipers, and he had ordered her to be armed because he did not like where things were going. And he wasn't metagaming. He did a good job of justifying it. So here she is in an armed Raptor, and we really got to see her pilot skills shine because they were faster, more maneuverable ships, but she was able to outfly them, and I think she destroyed 2 of them before they were actually able to get a couple of their Vipers airborne. And then there was, like, that was the thing too, because they were trying to launch the Vipers through the superstructure. And I think one of the characters actually damaged their Viper, like flying it, because it's in this big dry dock, with, and a couple of the Vipers, like, had to fly through the superstructure and stuff. But yeah, this one was really great, and I think that we would have continued to play this one. As a matter of fact, what's interesting is Aardvark, who is one of the more... He is the more experienced of players. I don't know if I'll ever convince him to he's very introverted, so I don't know if I'll be able to convince him to let me interview him. But he was the one that has said, if we could go back and revisit the games that we've played in the past, that's the one that he would want to do the most. But anyway, I had this plan where I was going to give Jade an opportunity to die in a heroic action, and then and then instead of have you make your, I had this great scene already planned out. Instead of having you go, well, I guess I'll just make another character. I was gonna have her, wake up in the bath of the, of the healing, the nutrient liquid.
We went that far, I think.
Yeah, and then have herself come in and say, welcome home, sister.
No, we went
and
that
then
far.
Have her scream
exactly.
to realize that
and that was the thing, that's where, like, knowing nothing is always good too, because I knew from the episodes that I saw that there were these replicas, right? And that some of them never knew that they were, and so I felt like my character was perfect for that, because I just did my job and did it well, and didn't really question anything about, the ship, the people, or myself. So then that was a wonderful ending, because of course that fits into the whole scenario as well.
Oh, I think it would have been very fun to explore too, because she would have been malfunctioning because she had been around the humans for too long. And so she was too self-aware, and they were going to try and shut her down, and then we were going to have to play some escape and everything.
But humans are going to be on my side.
And then coming back, what were the players would have to play, role play themselves, not play as your friend. And
exactly.
One of the things that killed Battlestar Galactica for us as a group, though, was yes. I love Conan. Conan, I love everything Conan. And when Conan came out and everything, there you can look through that. You can thumb through that. When Conan came out, I was just, all right, we're going to put Battlestar Galactica on hold, and we're jumping into the Conan universe. This was, and then when I had mentioned this to you, you were very familiar with, like, at least the 80s movie, which really...
definitely.
I read all the books when I was in high school. I loved all the books. This role-playing game was amazing as far as its detail and into the world, but I think, like, there were too many rules for our group. We like a very story-based, very rules-light. So tell me about Conan. And Jade is where your character is. We get that's your
Right.
Conan character,
Yeah.
so that's what I'm calling
That
you.
is, yeah, that is. I loved Conan. So, I mean, this was the other thing before I joined, before I was introduced to the board games and these RPGs, I didn't know they existed. And I didn't know they could go for years.
So when you agreed to play,
yeah,
you thought,
I thought
I'll
it
go,
was a
like,
night, right?
2 or 3
You know, we're gonna
evenings,
come
yeah.
over and play a game, and that was that, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so then I didn't even know that that these things were multi, days, weeks, months, years. But this was like one of those games that it's still fun. I was so glad when we picked it up again in a different place and a different mission, basically. And that's what's fun about Conan is I feel like there are so many stories in the world of Conan to play out. And your character can go into those different places. I like that it's kind of historically based, so
Yes.
the historian in me can relate to the world of Stygia, the world of Hyperborea. It's just different names for cultures that you're already familiar with.
Yes. It was heavily suggested that the world of Conan was like pre-Pangea, and
Right.
that it was like a sorcerer-driven cataclysm that caused the world to split and everything.
Right.
And all of these different cultures evolved into the peoples that we have. Like Samaria, which is where Conan is from, is like Scotland and Ireland. I mean, it's the kind of savage people there.
Right.
And Stygia is obviously Egypt. Yeah, we absolutely, yeah. And then Aquilonia, which was where Jade was from,
Where's that?
it's France,
Yep.
actually. It was
Yep.
a very French type culture, and it made it very fun for me to... By the way, squeaking is the dog...
I know. I was going to
going
say
in the background.
we need to get her out of here.
Nope, no, not at all. This is Bland Gaming. It's not a studio where it's all about keeping it real.
Well, it's real.
Yeah, I am a big fan of Tolkien, but I will say that I'm a blasphemer in the sense that I would say my favorite fantasy setting is Conan, and I like it because the thing that I thought was really cool is that it's very easy when you're playing fantasy games to say, well, I'm an elf, I'm a dwarf,
Right.
That's what defines me,
Right.
and in this game it forces you, because all the characters are human,
Right.
it forces you to really develop your character.
Right.
The other thing I thought that was really cool about it is that sorcery is bad. It is
Right.
not Harry Potter type of sorcery. There are good characters that can kind of use the sorcery for good, but I think as a role-playing setting, it's much darker.
Right.
So anyway, so talk to me about what you enjoyed with Conan. Talk to me about what you didn't enjoy in Conan.
So what I really enjoyed was, this is a plug to the GM. So it's really nice. When I came into this, at this personal time in my life, I had some issues to work out, and this character.
Oh yes. Can we get into that?
Sure.
Okay.
Of course, yeah.
So yes. So I had created a nemesis based on your ex-husband.
Yeah.
Yes, I did.
Yep.
I created a villain for you.
Yeah, which
And it was therapeutic.
It was therapeutic. It really truly was. And that's the thing is I didn't ask for it. It was given. And what was cool about that was, again, we all have these stories and we have these backstories, and what was very cool about this is just in setting up going into the first adventure, I also had a sidekick played by
Aardvark, yes. He played Quabe. Who
right.
was from... he was from...
He was from Kush, right?
Kush, yes.
Yep.
He was a Kushite, yes.
And
A giant. He has,
yep.
we called him a giant, but he was just a big human.
Yep. And that's the thing too. I transgress. There's a lot of things I like about this. These are like real people with real powers, and even like the sorcerers, and it's like dabbing into that world of magic, but it's not, like you said, Harry Potter magic. This is magic that has effects on people. So, you can't just cast a spell and be on your way. You're going to cast a spell and you're going to be down for the night, because it took something out of you. And then the warriors, just like myself and Kwabe, were ultra tough warriors, but we are still human, and so it's a chance to play what it would be like if you were an Olympian, with training that trained for a really long time, and then but you're still gonna get cut and you're still gonna bleed, you're still gonna have to recover.
But let's talk about your character, and because she was very much a civilized character in a group of criminals and savages.
Right. Right. And that's the thing too, is so I like that. I mean, I guess going back to the beginning with the kind of thing, the therapy started in the beginning. So I'm given this, partner basically who is, who rescues me from
the tree of woe.
From the tree of woe,
You're nailed to the tree of woe.
Right. Through, of course, that thing of me being, kind of coming from Aquilonia, this time of innocence and whatnot, into, into this dark, horrible place, left to die, and then along comes Kwabe and he rescues me and builds me back up, and then kind of helps me become this knight, fulfill
well, she was a noble woman.
She was
before. I think she was 12th in line for the throne.
Right.
She was of noble birth, but so she was already like a knight, but she was seduced by and tricked.
That's
right.
Right.
And was betrayed and found herself on the tree of woe. And so I think the really cool thing about Jade's story arc was that she was playing. We had two story arcs going on where it was a revenge story for her. She was always out to find, the man that had betrayed her, and behead him. And then she also, we had the fish out of water arc.
Right.
Because she was, the rest of the group were crude, savage, barbarian types, even criminals. We had a pirate and we had
which she actually established like a real relationship with, and
it was wonderful.
And so that's the thing is, I remember there was some point in the campaign that one of the people say, but she wouldn't do that, and my thing was, well, this is the problem. She's been this perfect person. Not perfect person, but she's been this noble person living in the world of savagery for so long. Now, one would like to think that you're so above it that you're always going to stay above it. But do you? And so my taking a turn, or, turning an eye to something that I knew was wrong, was kind of my thing to the group of saying, ooh, maybe something's not right with Lady Jade. Not necessarily I'm not doing what my character would do. Like, oh, well, she's noble. She wouldn't have condoned that. She would have stepped in. And it's like, I very much purposely did not, because and I think that helped too, because in later adventures, why does she hang out with this pirate for this long if she's really okay with what's going on, so it's I like that I got a chance to be more complex, and in the end, of course, come back around.
she was a very pious and religious character. And then I think that was a very interesting part, is when she finally did have her revenge, and it was a brutal revenge when she had it. She felt less fulfilled. Not more fulfilled. And then she worships Mitra, and Mitra appeared to her and said, why have you forgotten me? And then we had the secondary story arc of her kind of finding her way back to her faith. And she had spent so much time, the pirate was a captain of a ship, and so y'all had spent so much time on this ship, and she had been so distracted by, and seduced by the pirate life, that she kind of lost her way a little bit. And so I think
Right.
that's her story arc in that last campaign that was her finding her way back to
Right.
her pious
Yeah.
roots. And I thought that was
Exactly.
really good.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a very, very, and I do like how she was very surrounded by scoundrels.
Yeah.
But yet, everyone was very protective of
Right.
her.
Well, and that was the cool thing is again, you can be surrounded by scoundrels or, but that's the thing about people, right? Is are they as simple as we say they are, and even like, the pirate, yeah, he's a scoundrel, but he also has some very noble qualities,
Yes. Yeah.
as does every character that we went with. Well, almost every.
Yeah, he was a very much an anti-hero
Right,
type of
right,
character.
exactly.
And so was the
exactly.
Sheik. There was
the
like
Sheik,
he
exactly.
was like a criminal, I don't know, we call him like a criminal merchant.
Right.
But he was
I mean,
intelligent,
he'd be like
and
a
he was
mafia
charisma.
boss,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
And so
From Zamora.
right. And so you have these pirates, mafia bosses, mercenaries.
Yeah.
And so you can, and each person then has that's mainly who they are, but they were also loyal, also friends, also protective,
Yeah.
and so that's kind of the fun thing too, is everyone, I think every one of the characters was lovable in some way.
Yes, they were all good guys.
Good
I
guys,
think. Yeah.
right.
And that was the whole point of it, is that it's this savage world, but the way that the story arcs are designed is I still design them to be like, hey, yeah, you're a scoundrel, yeah, you're Han Solo, whatever, but we still, the stories are built for them to maybe even hate themselves for being charitable or being good.
Right.
It was very interesting too that this was the first game I'd ever played where we actually had a lot of, for lack of a better term, we had a lot of sex in this game.
Oh, it's true, yeah.
And it was never, these are all married, adult, mature people. So all of it happened off screen. It happened off screen, and it was, but the Sheik character in particular was very young. He was almost a James Bond type of character, where he used powers of seduction, and he also had a number of lovers that would pop up, that sometimes they were allies in our story, and sometimes there were some exes that were a little bitter. So, but that was a very interesting thing, because you and I both in real life, we're big people of faith.
Yes.
And I remember that we had a conversation about this, and I said, hey, how do you feel about this? They're going to these taverns, and some of the characters are actually soliciting prostitutes in the scenes. And again, it was nothing graphic, but it was suggestive, as far as we knew what was going on, and I remember asking you one time, and this was the sign where I knew you were a great player, is I said, hey, how do you feel about that? We're not condoning it, but this is kind of the world that they live in, and this would be normal for them. And I remember you looked at me and you said, look, I know the difference between make-believe and real life.
Totally.
And I thought that was a great way of looking at it. And I think one of the things that and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but one of the problems that we have as gamers that I'm seeing in the industry is we are holding the people of Conan's world to a modern 21st century moral standard, and that is not who they are here. That is not the world that they don't live in, the world of political correctness that we live in.
Well, and this is the thing, is this is supposed to be fun. I mean, I mean, this is the thing, is I feel like, why do we, listen to stories, read books, watch movies, do these things, is because, for me anyway, it's an escape from reality. Sometimes it has, like Conan did for me, it was actually therapeutic in role-playing, these different characters. I will say this, one of the things that I've enjoyed was getting together with with our players in real life and enjoying them who they are in real life too. And so great group of guys to come hang out with and play games with, and I really needed that in my life, and I enjoyed it. And then what's more fun what's additionally fun is then going into this world with these characters. And that's why I always say, gosh, I hope I think there's a fine line, because the one things that happened with me, with Lady Jade, not with the other characters in particular, but because I think I stayed with her for like, what was it, 2 years or something?
Oh, at least.
Yeah, at least. And we came back, right? Was that, I would dream scenarios.
Oh, wow.
Like I would actually dream as Jade sometimes, and I thought, oh wow, this is how you can cross that line of like who you are and who your character is. And you hear method actors say that all the time, like they sometimes get messed up, right? Because they start becoming that character. I think some people can do that, but and I had a little taste of that, but I think that's because the adventures themselves were hitting so close to home. But it was hitting close to home in a good way. This was definitely a therapeutic game for me. In the end, it was like all was right in my world, but I'd say with everything else, it's definitely a separation. I am going to do things as the player as close as I can, not anything to myself, just what I had imagined that player would be. And like I said, if I stab you in the back, step you on the toe, or kiss you, it's gonna be in that character,
right?
And so don't walk away. When we go take our break and have a drink, don't be thinking I'm still there. And I think some people, I don't understand that. People that are like, oh, they want this person to not do this or that. Well, that's what this character does. And it's a different world. If you don't like this world, do a different world.
I hear there's a Hello Kitty role-playing game.
There you go.
My Little Pony role-playing game.
I mean, there's probably something for everybody at this point.
Yeah, there's definitely. So I think at the beginning of the games, the way that we just kind of manage it is, I've always had a really good relationship with my players. Like if I detect that there's a possible issue, I'll approach you like I did that one time where I said, hey, how do you feel about this? And we're not condoning or glorifying it. Right. It's just something that you would see in a Conan book or a Conan movie that is a side thing that would occur. And it wasn't overdone to the point where it was sleazy.
No, and I will say that those were some of the best times. I mean, I will say we spent a lot of good times eating and drinking in taverns.
Yes.
So it did become like a fun thing. I mean, I think even Lady Jade got a massage.
She did. That is one of I want to talk about that, because that was we took that moment and turned it into a comic relief moment.
Yeah, right.
Please and thank you. Yes, please. Thank you. And so I'll give our viewers a little background. After we spent some time you went to a tavern, and the entire group was there. And then as the entire group gets approached by the employees of this brothel and tavern, one of the Jade gets herself a room, and she wants to have a bath, and so the prostitute takes her up to her room and then helps her to get her things into the bath and everything. And then I think there was at one point she starts rubbing her back, and Jade's like, no. Thank you. You may go now.
I know, exactly.
And it was a wonderful moment of, it could have been sleazy and gross, but it was such a great moment of comic relief. And it's exactly what Jade, it was so totally in character for her.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
To where she was ignorant in the sense that she was like, oh, this woman's going to hand me my towel and
Who doesn't like great
help
spa
run
service?
help run my warm water. And,
Well, and I think too, like it was like one of those special occasions where we had just killed something or whatever, bloody.
It was, yeah.
It was like this big celebration, and it's and personally, after you work really hard, you want a good meal and a hot bath. So that was kind of where I was going with that, and yet it was fun and comic and. Yeah, just ordering food was fun.
We did well, and that was one thing that I had tried to do is like, especially because when I've read the books of Game of Thrones, George R. R. Martin describes these feasts in detail and of what they're eating and what they're drinking, and I remember it was just so cool. Just what the room smelled like. Was it cold? Was there a draft that was coming in? The warmth of the fire and these little pleasures that we take for granted in our 21st century society brought such comforts to these people.
And that's what I think I loved about this world too. Like, this is a harsh world. You are fighting hard. I mean, just picking up a sword like that, right? And I mean, this is what you're walking out from. You want to get cleaned up from that. It's just, and like you said, I like those details, but that's why I like RPGs. I like those details. I like to know what it smells like, what it feels like. I want that world created, and I think you did a really good job of wherever we were creating that atmosphere. So if we were in the desert, it felt like the desert, when we were, in the snow and the cold. Nordheim, we felt that.
And then when you come into the longhouse, the feeling of comfort and the smell of the food and just the feeling of the warmth.
Yes, exactly. Because, you can imagine just being so cold and then, living on a ship for months on end, eating ship food. And then finally you get to, and then you're out there and you kill all these sea monsters, and then you got their blood and guts all over you and just the stench and the smell of that. And then when you finally reach land, what's the first thing you're going to want to do?
Right. Yeah.
So just that whole thing was really awesome.
Yeah, we talked about the sunburn and the salt. And we also...
And just what we'd wear, versus...
Yeah, she couldn't wear her armor.
You can't wear your armor on a hot ship.
No, she was dressed in like I think she had just a regular tunic, like a top, and then just like some
pantaloons or something.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and which was fun because and that was the fun thing too is introducing these other side characters that came in, and coming up with what they would look like and everything. So Rose, in particular, I just think about her and Gianna, like what they would actually be looking like and acting like, and then later my little sidekick I get, what was her name? Up from North, it's just fun.
It was the Jarl's daughter, who she almost kills her.
Yeah.
And she challenges as Shield Maiden of Vanir, and she challenges her to a fight, and then so because she made comments about her noble upbringing and that she wasn't able to fight, and she's too busy, she's too busy like drinking fine tea and looking at fine wine and thinking about breeding her noble house than fighting.
Right.
And so I remember that Jade was like, I'll fight. Almost killed her. Yeah. And then spares her, and then instead she winds up, I think it was a dose of humility that she winds up following Jade at that point and wanting to learn from her and learn, martial skills and stuff like that. So, okay, but we could talk about Conan for hours.
I feel like
because
we could do that forever.
I think you already answered a question I'm going to ask you at the end here, but we'll go. Okay, so then the next one that we went to was to Mutant Year Zero, and we did specifically Gen Lab Alpha, where it was the animals. Spoiler alert, I will say that if we went back to something and did it again, I will always go back to Conan. But I really enjoyed this one. I think the problem with this one is that we could not get our schedules. I think there was you and your husband strayed and went into a D&D campaign, and then we were also playing our next game that we'll talk about, Tales from Loop, as well.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And we just could not get the schedules to line up on that.
This one was really fun though.
All right, so tell me about this. Tell me about Gen Lab Alpha.
I mean, this just says it all. All right. You got these, animals that have been experimented on, which you can already be like, oh, but they've been experimented in different various ways. A lot of them come out, these kind of great fighting animals with these fighting spirits. And I love, like, our crew just had it was as diverse as this, right? Just these crazy
They're all the different animal tribes.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Animal tribes all over. Yeah. My husband was not a member of a tribe, but like a shaman moose.
He's the moose, and he was one of my favorite. We were talking about the Legos. I talked about that in Mal's video, and I talked about that in Patu's video.
Yes, that was the coolest thing.
It was great. And he would throw one of my favorite things about playing this game was that I would hand you guys physical props.
Right. I like that. Yep.
And I can't remember who it was, but I handed. Do you remember the swearing duck?
Yes.
The duck that like.
Yeah.
And he was like, everything was like, I did him in a Boston accent.
Yep.
And then he was just filled with profanity.
Yep, that's right. That was fun.
And that duck y'all had saved him from like a group of gators that were trying to eat him. And so he gives you a roll of duct tape. Yeah. And I like throw it in the middle of the table, and I sit there, and there's this quiet as everyone goes, what are we supposed to do? And then I'm like, and it was very much just like what the animals would have done, where they would have been looking at it going, what the, what are we supposed to do with it? And I can't remember who it was, but someone picked it up and tried to eat it, and then the duck is like swearing at them and telling them how great it is, and this is great, this is money, what are you talking about? Come on, can't you see what this can do? And then I think it was you actually took like a strip of the tape off and like taped my mouth shut.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what she did to the duck, which I just thought was so funny. That was a brilliant moment, but I really had a lot of fun with this one.
This was fun. What I liked about it, so I played a cougar. Haha. That was purposeful.
Yeah. You are the only cat person who I have really in real life gotten along very well with. I'm a dog person.
Yes. I'm definitely a cat person, and I'm quite a bit older than my husband, hence the cougar character.
I didn't want to go there, but
I will say it to let it be known. Okay, right. Well, and that was kind of the inside joke too, right? And I'm a cat person, so I understand cats. So I think one of like and that's what I liked about this one is you're role playing based on a human animal hybrid.
Right.
And that is fun. So it's not always what your human side would do to react to something. And they're in this world trying to figure it out with these things that would be very much known to a human, like a book, but a mystery to these animals who are
any of the characters, like even the mutant characters in the other versions, because this is only 1/4 of the type of characters that you can play in this setting. You can play as a robot, you can play as a pure human,
that's right,
you can play as a mutated human.
We kept it simple.
You guys were in the like it was a national park that had been turned into a research facility,
right?
And the humans had died off or disappeared, and the robots were still running it. And so the tribes of animals are kind of role-playing into like this insurgency that is beginning. And that's pretty much what we role-played out. That was great. She was from the cat tribe.
Yes, so I was from the cat tribe. And I remember we had... I think the thing I remember most about this was a couple of things that, they're kind of scavenging around for these things. And I remember we have to choose like a little something that we kind of kept with us all the time. That
like a special item.
Like a special item. And I remember thinking, it was kind of fun to have, I was thinking of the swivel stick of a Starbucks thing, because it has that mermaid cat, fishy thing on, and that would look really cool to it, a cat, and that it would, but you wouldn't know what the heck it was ever for. Yeah. But it would be cool, right? Yeah. And just all of those things, we got into this plane, and somebody had died, and there was a hat, and that's what I remember is that he was wearing a hat with a ball on it. And so of course my first instinct wasn't to even see anything except my eyes just see that ball and wants to play with that ball, and swap at it. And I remember that, and I still see hats with those balls on top, and I still want to
Yeah. Well, like
What
it was
a-
like the stocking cap.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah,
like the
sto-
stocking
it's
cap
the
with the
stocking
big
cap
ball
with the
on it
Yep.
and everything, and then she would like to play it. Yeah, she wanted to play with it. Yeah.
And it was like a serious moment. But a cat can quickly
Yes. Yeah.
change, so yeah, so this was really fun. I felt it was a very easy story to keep rolling. I felt like we were always very much more of a play, we were always kind of involved talking. We had the props, which was awesome. And I think we all had pretty developed characters and played easily in our developed character.
I love the interaction. Everybody had a special relationship with the little girl, Eve.
Yes, and then we have the introduction of her, right?
Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
Who's like the savior, kind of, because she's able to short out electrical equipment, and they're being held prisoner by robots, so she becomes like this messiah to the players. That was something I added to the campaign there.
Yeah.
But everyone had a special relationship with her. She couldn't hear.
Right.
As a result of her using her ability, it was like making her deaf, and she would bleed out of her ears every time that she used her ability to short things out. So this was a really fun game, and it was the first time that I had used the Year Zero engine, the easy mechanic where you just roll the 6-sided dice, and however many successes you get, that's
right.
It's such a narrative-based system. And then, do you remember when you guys went into the dogs were the collaborators?
Oh, yes.
And do you remember when you went into their camp and I was playing AC/DC on, because
Yeah,
it was like a
yeah,
big
right,
barbecue
a big
party.
Yep.
And they were listening to AC/DC. And I
Right,
played the AC/DC music
Yep.
in the background when
We
I was
had our
describing
big-
that scene.
Yeah, and that's what's fun too. I felt like this one just had a lot of. It was easy to go into the stories because we had props, we had music, we had everyone's character. Pretty much we had a common enemy and a common protagonist with Eve. So it's just like we had this mission, weren't sure exactly what we were gonna do, but that was part of the and mystery. So yeah, I thought this was a really fun, easy. The compounds, the dog compound.
And then you guys you also got to have cut scenes.
Yeah.
Through the visions of the moose. The moose would have the visions of the robots.
That's right.
And there was, I think, there was the one robot there were two robots that were always having conversations.
That's right.
And one was, I think his name was it Vincent? And then Alfred were the two robots, and they were kind of like the thinking robots and stuff.
Right.
And while Vincent, I don't know if you picked up on it, but Vincent was like cruel, and he was very pragmatic in his cruelty, and yet Alfred was the one that was almost having second thoughts.
Yeah.
He was starting to become a little bit more human and stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah, I loved having those, and I would play the evil music and everything when they were having a cutscene and they were talking about and it was always like they were looking at a scene that the animals had just been at, or they were observing bodies that the animals had, and they were always having this discussion about it. So it gave the group a feeling that the robots were on their tail and stuff. That was
and then you had that.
It was a great storytelling.
It was great storytelling. Too. So yeah, this was fun. I liked it.
That was good. Okay, all right. I have in 25 minutes. I have people coming over.
Go fast.
So not too fast, but we've got a little bit of time. So, all right. So let's talk about Tales from the Loop.
Okay, I like
this. Is another one that your husband said was one of his favorites.
This is one of my faves. Yeah.
So tell me about that.
So here's another therapy session. So
yes.
So we actually, except for my husband's character, we actually based our characters on ourselves
in middle school. Yep.
And we were in middle school in the 80s, so
Yes.
this was
Yes.
what was really nice.
Well,
about,
you and I were. The rest of the kids were more 90s
yeah, you're
characters.
Right. Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
They're more 90s, but you know, we
But everybody knows the 80s were awesome, and so we had a lot of fun with.
So we had a lot of good fun music and everything.
We did.
The atmosphere is foreboding. We open up with the whole scene of, you know, she's found us, you know, which or something like that.
Yes,
yeah,
no,
right?
absolutely. Yeah, we had it take place in 2013 where they were adults. It was the first time they'd seen each other since high school. And that was how we started the campaign. Was they met at it was around Boise. We picked Boise to be our area.
Yes.
And they met in a bar in Boise in 2013. And then the one player came in, and I had told him, I said, hey, after everyone meets, and this is the only thing you guys know, is that he had just sent an email out, and it's the first time y'all had been together. I said, you know, you had experienced death and seen death before and been in danger, and that's all you remember.
Right.
And then he ends it with, I think she's found us.
Yeah.
And then that's when I started with, then we cut to, I started playing Everybody Wants to Rule the World by Tears for Fears. And then I had the one character that was just on his bike. And he was just riding his bike and everything. And then slowly we meet everyone as he's picking, as he's riding his bike, he's picking everyone up as you guys are all going to school. And we had a brief moment where everyone was role-playing what they would be doing in the morning when they're getting ready for school.
Right. And so, that was fun. And the adventure was fun. And I just remember thinking, there's a point that you would, you know, you always have these sidebars with people, and you took one of the other players for a sidebar, and you left the rest of us at the table. And I remember there was a point where one of the other players said, it's a little eerie how our GM knows this stuff about us. And I was like, yeah, we must be like so textbook. You know? 'Cause I was thinking there were moments like you would put up these scenes for me, and I was like, oh my gosh, that really happened. Like, how would you know that? You know?
But you did define like everyone except for your husband had based their experiences, and so you had given me these seeds of like
but you grew like whole big plants out of those seeds that were accurate.
One of the guys was like he was very poor, you know, and he kind of got neglected because his sister got all the attention. You know, that was one of the characters. And then I think Dad was alcoholic, you know, and so so that was a very fun very fun game. I enjoyed that. That was a heavy on role playing, and then I played it. I really played the 80s up into it. I played it more like Stranger Things.
I like that it was, you know, we got to choose these characters that also were very much like our 80s middle school selves, you know. This was definitely kind of what the whole what was that, Breakfast Club kind of a feel, you know.
It definitely had a Breakfast Club feel.
It kind of had that, and then you know, Patu's character was like just that older kid that, you know,
Criminal.
kind of but you know, made that way, you know, and still cool and nice, you know, like at least he was to me, you know. And that was it too, is like we built these relationships, these kid relationships, and being the only girl in the group was kind of, you know, that, are you a tomboy, are you not, are you, you know, that kind of because we have these adventures, and being accepted. I spent a lot of time as a kid with my brother and his friends, you know, so it was kind of that same feel for me going back into this game of like hanging out with my brother and his friends and going on these adventures, except these adventures are much darker.
Yes. Well, okay, so the way that the system is written, it's pretty light. Like the kids can't be killed.
Right.
In the game.
It's not as dark as
but I took it down a very dark.
I know.
I made it almost a quasi horror type of scenario.
And you know, we we all survived because we opened in 2013, you know.
Exactly.
But then it's like, oh, some danger is back.
Well,
right?
we took advantage of that, right? You had plot armor there because we know that the kids aren't going to die. So
Right.
playing a reunion in 2013 was a very fun way to start the campaign.
Exactly. So yeah. Oh, look at that. So yeah, this was just a lot of fun. I enjoyed revisiting my 13 self, and that was pretty fun.
Would you want to go back to that one?
I would do that.
Yeah.
I'd do any of these again. I like them all.
Oh,
this one. Oh.
The game changer.
Yeah.
I think it was such a game changer.
Talk about dark, right?
Yeah. Oh,
and this is another one of those games, you know, you're gonna die.
Yep.
There's no surviving this one. So how are you going to play it out?
Yeah.
And
I think the difference between this one and like Call of Cthulhu, it's like likely you're going to go mad and die. This one, it's a mathematical certainty.
And yet still, you just have that hope. Maybe you're the one that gets away, right? Yeah. And so even though it's like, you know, the chances are not going to happen. What if you get away? You know, it's not going to be good no matter what.
Yes.
So you got your character and you just play that character. And I will say this was the game that you know, all along I kind of had this interest in my husband, and I knew he had no clue. And this was the one game that you gave me a character that was like secretly in love with his character, and I didn't know if that was ever purposeful or not, but I was like,
I thought that they had like little relationships and stuff that you would be handed out,
and then like, again, I'm not sure if it was just the my secret mission was basically to make sure he got out, right? So then I was like, oh, well, here's my game. So this was the one game I played the entire time that was probably the closest to reality without anybody knowing. So, you know, because of course in the end she sacrifices herself, you know. I mean, nobody gets out, but
to save him.
But to save him, right? And so that was like an interesting little character. So this was really fun because it is just, look at this, it's just darkness.
It is, and I used like scary music, and then the low lights.
It was so intense, like the entire time. Like it was like being in the movie. And this is the thing too, where, you know, I've seen all the movies, and so you know what's gonna happen, but again, you know, you don't know exactly what's gonna happen and who's, you know, going to, what their secret plots are and who's really with you or not, you know. Right. So you're just playing your character. I felt like this one, I just played my character and just was like, we'll see where this goes.
Yeah.
You know?
The thing I thought was really interesting about this one, and I have to kind of give a shout out to you personally. You don't swear.
Oh, I don't.
You do not swear at all. And like Mal, I think he dropped like 4 F-bombs in my interview because he doesn't even realize he's swearing. So what was so great about your character in this, there's that one scene, it's the scene where the birth is happening.
Right.
And as this is going, it hasn't happened yet, and I'm playing like the scary music, and but it's intensifying.
Right.
And that one lady locked you guys in the room with the person, and she is banging on the hatchway, on the window, and screaming and swearing at this girl. And I had never heard you swear like that in my entire life. And so hearing you bang on because you were sitting there, this is what my character would be saying. And oh my goodness, what a potty mouth you have, Jade.
Well, my mom did swear like a sailor, so I did learn from the best. But
it was a great role playing moment. It was a really great role playing moment.
Again, why are these things so fun? You know, you get to be all these different characters that aren't, you know, necessary. Well, none of them. I mean, they have bits and elements of your personal self, but only bits, right? So yeah, I don't swear in general. I mean, once in a while something slips out if I'm, you know, once in a while, but I'm generally not a swearing type of person. But this, you're gonna swear if that happens to you in this alien ship, right? It's gonna come out, and that character especially, and just this whole intense. This was intense. If you just want an intense night.
Yeah.
This is gonna be your game. And I play this one again too. And again too, it kind of goes to that, you know, I mean, if you've seen the movies, like Ripley to me is just like, you know, a pretty badass character. See, I just swear even though see,
That's okay.
it brings
That's
it out.
okay.
It brings
It
it
does,
out,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
You know, and you just like get like, I don't know.
I think about like my daughter, and I think about who I would want her to emulate, and I really liked Ripley. I like Ripley a lot. Ripley is, you know, she's smart, she's tough, she is someone who has overcome her demons with human,
exactly.
You know, with human resonance. I would much rather my daughter look up to Ripley than say Captain Marvel.
Oh,
you know, I enjoy. You know, I think Ripley is she's such a positive feminist example. You know, the entire climax in the end of the second movie is about two mothers protecting their children.
Right, exactly.
Which I thought was so awesome.
Yep. And that's it too, is like, I think Ripley's like the best of human woman, right? You know, like she doesn't have superpowers, but she knows how to carry a gun. She, you know, doesn't have, you know, she's not an Olympian, but she's in good shape. You know, she is smart. She's not one of these scientists, but she's smart. She's logical, you know, and she's a leader.
Yeah.
And then
she's in this group where she is the least dangerous out of all of them with these Marines. And she winds up being their de facto leader because of strength of character, courage.
And that's courage. And she's courage and she's sacrificial.
Yep.
You know, she is like, you know,
decisive.
She's decisive, and she knows who she is I think what it is. And so when she's faced with this, you know, she knows what she's going to do.
And I like it that she has a partnership with Hicks.
Yeah.
You know, it's
exactly.
Maybe in a different setting there would have been a romance there between the two of them, but Hicks is like her equal, you know what I mean? And the two of them, where it's kind of like you say that we don't have to make Hicks into a dummy in order to elevate Ripley. You know, Hicks is a strong and capable leader himself, and he works with her anyway.
And I feel like that's what you want in moments like this, right? It's funny that I turned this page, because when you are in these moments with these aliens, that's who you want to have your back, you know? And so it's fun that whether that happens in the game or not, you get to feel that, you know, so that's fun. Yeah. You know what you want, but you also know it's gonna happen.
Yes.
So yeah, I love this one. This is just a nice dark evening of darkness.
It was a hoot.
It was good.
All right, really we have like maybe 5 minutes left.
What do we got?
And then we have Delta Green.
Delta Green.
Yes. So it's funny you talk about Call of Cthulhu and you're interested in Call of Cthulhu. Like Delta Green is modern Call of Cthulhu.
Okay.
And I think your character was not a combat; she was a doctor.
Yeah, so I got to be a doctor, a physician in this one, which is fun because that's what I always wanted to be growing up. I wanted to be a paleontologist, then a surgeon. And so this was fun. I got to play that character. Now this is the one story that Pat 2 went through, and I was like, I don't think I played Delta Green. He's like, yeah, you played Delta Green. Remember you played the doctor? And I was like, I don't remember that story. And so he told me, I was like, I know why I didn't remember that story, because this one actually scared me. Like, this one scared me. I put it out of my mind. So I was like, oh my goodness. So, you know, the Lovecraftian, I was like, okay, Call of Cthulhu, fine. Yeah. But this is more like X-Files.
Yeah.
And the scariest episodes of X-Files, you know? Yeah. And so this one I found myself getting up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom and scaring myself back into bed. You know? Because this one, when we were playing it, wasn't terrible. But then I started thinking about it. And I got really creeped out. Yeah. So this was one of those, and you know, and part of it, like, look at this. It just looks like something you see every day. And it was the scenario, I think, was like the kind of the dimensional beings based on almost like on the Native American Slim Man.
Cultures.
And so see
the Slim
that
Man thing.
The Slim Man. Yeah. So this was the thing. I think someplace in my mind I knew that tale. That Native American tale, right? And so it stuck with me. And so when we get into this and they use, you know, we get the descriptions and we start seeing this stuff, I'm like, I've seen this before. My mind, this was one that I had like a hard time keeping separated when I say, you know, so this one actually scared me.
Yeah.
And so this is definitely, and then the whole, you know, you get to be like this FBI kind, or well, there's all these different characters, but the fact that this is just was more realistic. This is more realistic, like, you know, something now.
Yeah.
And so it scared me. And but it was fun. Like, I would, if you want to just get scared.
It was a good one.
I mean, all the different stuff you can be.
These scenarios are very well written. These and the Call of Cthulhu, and even the Alien ones are like, I have to do very little work on those.
Well, and what's so interesting is look at all the different characters you can be, and you're going to get this hodgepodge.
Yes.
And I felt like when we got our hodgepodge, we were not gonna survive, right? You know, like sometimes you can go into Alien, you think, well, I've got a Marine Corps, and I've got a scientist. We're gonna survive this. We got a ship specialist. You know, you might stand a chance.
Yeah.
But this is you can get some. You know, what if you got, you know, the combat veteran? Yes, but then the clergy. What's gonna happen? You know, so you get this kind of setup of like, are we going to even be able to figure out what this is, and are we going to survive this, and then all this? Yeah, it's very much X-Files, and it just, the particular one we did totally scared it was scary for me.
That is a winner.
Yeah.
So. All right, well, listen, I have to bring this to a close, but at the very end of this, I have to ask you, which one is your favorite? Which one is your favorite game that you
I think probably, I don't know if it's because I spent the most time with it or not, but probably Conan.
Conan, yeah.
Yeah, and you know, and like I said, we spent a long time with it. Our peeps, you know, spent a long time with the guys that played in that, and I love all the guys that I've played with. So it's just, probably that one.
All right, well, hey Jade, thanks for joining me on my channel here and everything. This was a lot of fun. I wish we could talk. You and I could probably talk for another hour, but I have like literally people coming to my house in 5 minutes and everything. So, well, hey, and thank you for tuning in at Bland Gaming. By all means, leave us a like and a comment. And again, thanks for joining us, Jade. That was fun. All right, and we are